And welcome back to part two of episode number 45 of Owen's Rock and Metal podcast. Here today, talking about Guitar Hero. Part one of today's episode was an interview with my friend Jaxon, frequent guest of the show. Part two of today's discussion about Guitar Hero is with a newcomer to the program, good friend of mine, Matt, making his podcast debut here on Owen's Rock and Metal podcast. Guitar Hero fan, as I understand it. I know that I believe we've played in the past. So, Matt, welcome to the program. How are you doing today on this Sunday night?
Doing pretty good. I'm glad to finally make my debut on the podcast.
Yes, happy to have you here. So, talking about Guitar Hero, the game, the franchise, all the different versions. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the game. When did you first start playing guitar?
So I think my very first Guitar Hero experience was Guitar Hero 2 on the PS2. And I was pretty young. I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old or something. Like it had to have been like around when the game came out. And it was my brother's, I think. And we had like the old like red guitar controller, like wired plug right into the PS2. That was my first game. Now I didn't, of course, play on the guitar. I played on the PS2 controller. And I remember it was like the shoulder buttons were green through blue, and then the X button was orange. So you would just like use your fingers and then hit the X button for orange. And I remember I got pretty good at that. I
Yeah.
got like pretty accustomed to that because the guitar controller was so like big for me when I was a kid. So it took me a while before I finally started using it.
That's
Um,
interesting. I did not know that. So you like plugged the PS2 controller into the guitar and you were able to like use it as a remote essentially? Or how did that work?
so you would just use your PS2 controller like normal. It would just plug
Oh,
into the system, but you could like navigate the menus normally like it's a regular PS2 game. And then, yeah, once it goes into the song and you've got like the chart with the notes coming at you,
yeah.
that was like how they corresponded the buttons. And I found it easier not only because I didn't have to hold the guitar controller, but instead of having to like hold a button down and then press another one to like strum,
Right.
you could just click the one button and then that would count for the whole input for the note.
Yeah. So in a way, that's like less you have to worry about because you're just pressing buttons instead of pressing buttons and strumming with your other hand. That's interesting. So I'm not sure how many people could say that they've started playing Guitar Hero without the actual guitar, but that's the case for you. So Guitar Hero 2, that was earlier than what I started playing. I didn't start playing till World Tour, which is like the fourth one in the series. After having Guitar Hero 2, you mentioned it was your brother's. Did he go on to have other Guitar Heroes? Did you eventually get into your own copies and versions of the game as well?
Yeah, for sure. So after Guitar Hero 2 was, of course, Guitar Hero 3, Legends of Rock. That was and still is my favorite one of the mainline series. And I remember like when that released. Like I remember the big release of that one. My brother, of course, got it again, and this time it was on the Xbox 360. And I kind of started out with that one the same way by just playing like with an Xbox controller in hand. But I found that one more difficult because instead of like the PS2 being like just little clicky buttons on the shoulders, it was like you had the two bumpers and then the two triggers
Right.
on the Xbox 360. So like it was kind of harder to like move my fingers around that and like hit them well. Um but I still think that that was mainly how I played Guitar Hero 3 back in the day. And then I'd of course watch my brother play it on the actual guitar controller.
And in part one of my conversation today with Jaxon, he talked about how playing Guitar Hero and playing these games was really influential on his music taste. And eventually, it got him into playing music and playing the drums and stuff. Um, for those who don't know, you also are a guitar player. Where did Guitar Hero fit into your influence of you playing guitar? Would you consider Guitar Hero kind of impactful in that? Did it make you want to pick up a guitar, or how did that sort of play a role?
I actually think most of my influence to want to learn how to play actual guitar came from other sources than Guitar Hero. I remember, I think the thing that made me get my first electric guitar was the movie School of Rock.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, when I first saw that movie, I was in like maybe fifth grade, and I just became obsessed with it. And then I was like, man, I want to be Jack Black. So I got an electric guitar, and for a while, I didn't really know like what to do with it. Like, I didn't want to put in the time to practice because who wants to do that?
No.
So I just kind of like plinked around on it. I learned a couple of like the little riffs from the movie, like Smoke on the Water and Iron Man and stuff like that. But that was really the extent. And then I know, like, as far as like musical inspiration, like the band that really just opened me up to like loving music was Green Day.
Mhm.
And like all throughout middle school, Green Day was the only band that existed to me.
Yeah.
Um, so I listened to them on repeat, and then I feel like I kind of accidentally stumbled upon power chords for electric guitar because, like, I don't remember, like, learning about them or seeing people do it in videos or anything. Like, I was just kinda, like, playing around, and then I realized with, like, just this hand formation
Yeah.
on those top 3 strings, it's like, "Oh, this sounds like a full chord. I'm just gonna do this." So then I started learning some, like, Green Day songs, and then, it kinda went on from there, but I think I kind of, like, brought my musical tastes, like, into Guitar Hero rather than the other way around
Right.
because, then, of course, around, like, mid-2010s, I found Green Day Rock Band,
Right.
and, that, of course, was like, "Oh my god, they made a full game of just Green Day songs."
Yes.
That was my bread and butter.
Right. That's interesting you bring that up because I sort of share that experience too, where when I would play the Guitar Hero games, I played Guitar Hero a lot on the Wii. That was my primary vessel for playing Guitar Hero. And when I would play it, I would stick to the songs I know. I wouldn't really like I wouldn't go out of bounds too much to what I didn't know. I'd like to know the song I'm playing, but I didn't really pick up a ton of music from the game. But rather, now that I look back on the set lists in there, it's like, I know a good chunk of these songs. I wish I would have. What was I thinking back then? But you just don't know. And then it's funny you bring up Rock Band. I've actually never played Rock Band. So how would you say that compares to the Guitar Hero games?
It's very, very similar.
Hmm.
It's basically just, like, visually different.
Okay.
The guitar controllers feel very different, I will say that, and I much prefer the feel of the Guitar Hero controllers,
Uh-huh.
just like how those buttons feel with, the Guitar Hero controllers, like, those buttons are, like, elevated on the neck, so you, like, press them in, but on a Rock Band controller, they're, like, flat. They're, like, level with the neck, and you press them, like, in,
Interesting.
and I like the extruding buttons better because it just, like it's easier for me to, like, feel which button I'm at, without having to look, of course. Um, so the controllers for Guitar Hero, I think, are better. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's,
This is Rock Hero. Rock Band.
Rock Band, yeah.
No heroes here.
Guitar Band.
Yeah. Well, they had I don't know if you ever played it, but they had a Band Hero, which
Yeah, I do remember that actually.
Jackson and I talked about that earlier, and I had that for the Wii, and it was more like a mix of like rock and like some pop songs in there. It had a different blend, but that's why I was stumbling over the name.
Yeah. I forgot that was a thing. I never did play Band Hero or, like, DJ Hero or any of those, spin-offs.
Yeah, I never got into DJ Hero either. The games I had for Guitar Hero, I had Guitar Hero World Tour, I had Guitar Hero 5, and then I had Band Hero, and then I had Guitar Hero World Tour on the DS as well. And that would, you had the buttons that would plug into the bottom of the DS, and then you would hold it like I don't remember if you held it sideways or not, but you would just play in your hand, which I guess is a nice way to be able to make the game mobile or whatever. So yeah, definitely interesting perspective there. Different versions of the game, Rock Band, Guitar Hero, pretty much it's the same game, just different controls, different songs, different animations, different graphics. Okay, so in terms of, playing Guitar Hero, the music in there, you said that your music taste was kind of you were taking what you listened to and picking out that selection out of Guitar Hero rather than the other way around. What sort of songs do you remember really enjoying playing, or was there anything that you played? I played this 100 times, or I worked really hard to play this song till I had it down 100%. Was there anything like that that you remember when you were playing these games?
Yeah. The number one that comes to mind is Cliffs of Dover.
Yes,
Eric
I think it's Eric
man, I forget
Johnson. Yeah.
Eric Johnson, yeah. I was gonna say Eric Clapton, I was like, "I don't think that's right." But yeah, Cliffs of Dover is, like, the quintessential Guitar Hero song to me. It's like, if I'm handed Guitar Hero and I have one song to play, it's gonna be that.
Okay.
And, like, every time I'd be out at, like, an arcade and they would have the Guitar Hero arcade machine, like, I'd always just hop on, play Clips of Dover, and be like, I've got that out of my system.
Yes. It's funny. I told this story in the first part, but I'll tell it again. Playing guitar, I started playing the guitar around like when I started playing Guitar Hero. So it was at a very close point in time. So I thought, I can play the actual guitar. I'm sick. I can play Guitar Hero no problem. This is just a video game. And so I'm like, we were at an arcade. I was at a Dave and Buster's. It was on a band trip. And so I say to somebody, hey, let's play this Guitar Hero game. I can play the real guitar. Like, I'll smoke you in this. And I pick Cliffs of Dover. I'm like, oh, this is a hard song. He'll stumble all over himself. I've got the finger motions. Like, I can at least play this. I got totally smoked. I did not do it well at all. So that is my story for why just because you can play one, just because if you're good at Guitar Hero, you might be good at guitar, but it's not a guarantee. And if you can play the guitar, it's not a guarantee that you're good at Guitar Hero either.
Definitely. I've always considered it very different skill sets
Right.
for playing Guitar Hero and playing real guitar. It's like learning how to drive in, like, a Forza game and then being like, "Oh, you can drive a real car."
Right. Do you still play Guitar Hero? Do you ever get it out, or is this just kind of a nostalgic thing that you think about every once in a while?
So I will still play every once in a while, but, I'll play a version called Clone Hero, which
Jackson was talking about this. Do you want to? I don't know what this is. Do you want to tell the people what is Clone Hero?
yeah, so Clone Hero is a PC only version of Guitar Hero, to my knowledge, and it's basically just like a blank slate. You download, the executable for it, and then there's a folder where you have to like download like fan made tracks that people make, and there's different websites you can go to. There's like two of them that I usually go to. Let me see if I can remember. One of them is called Chorus, and the other one is called Rhythmverse. So you go to those two websites, and you can find the chart folders that you download. And then you basically just put them into the right folder for the game. Then you load the game back up, and then all of those songs just like appear in your menu. So you can basically just like search for what bands you want, what songs you want, just see if people have made them. You can also take songs that are from like any Guitar Hero game that's ever existed, so you could just like have one library of like all official Guitar Hero songs. But I mainly like to use it for like the fan made stuff, the stuff you couldn't get in the other Guitar Heroes.
Interesting. And you play this with the same Guitar Hero controller, or is it like on your keyboard since it's on the PC? How does that work?
So you can use real Guitar Hero controllers. They like make some that are like for PC specifically now,
Okay.
but I actually use an Xbox 360 one, and I have like an Xbox 360 dongle that
Hmm.
like connects to my PC, and then I can connect my Xbox 360 one like wirelessly, like
Yeah.
normal.
Okay. Interesting. So, what sort of material are you playing in Clone Hero that it was not in Guitar Hero? What sort of tracks or artists are you looking at?
A lot of like punk stuff.
Okay.
I always felt like in the old Guitar Hero games, like the punk demographic was very lacking.
Yeah.
And there was like a handful of good songs. There was like a couple things that I could pick out and be like, oh, yeah, I know that one.
Right.
But I feel like, especially like in the early series, like it was very focused on like classic rock or or stuff that's like very like guitar heavy. And now punk, like there's not a lot of like soloing in punk music. A lot of it is kind of like power chords or, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the reason why it was like not showcased very much. But with this fan version, I can find like all kinds of those artists like Noah Lagwagon, No Use for a Name, Pennywise, Jeff Rosenstock, like so many different artists that were never like showcased in those games.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting. I was not aware of Clone Hero, but it sounds like an interesting concept, and it sounds like some way that because as we kind of talked about in part one, the Guitar Hero games are pretty much extinct, but this is a way that the community has kept the games alive. Can you? I mean, I don't know if you have a way to tell as like just a user, like how active people are on there, or is that kind of like how many users are still playing Guitar Hero through Clone Hero, or is that kind of hard to tell from your perspective?
It's hard to tell from my perspective. I actually don't think I'm even playing on like the most up to date version of Clone Hero. I always get like a notification to upgrade it, but I'm just like, it does what I need it to do. But So I don't know if like in newer versions it has like a counter of like how many people are playing or not, but yeah, I'm not really sure how like active people are. I know that there's like a Discord server that you can join that's Clone Hero specific, and that's like populated with tons of people. I think on there they'll host like tournaments and like will actually like play with people. So I think it's pretty active still. I don't really dabble in the Discord unless I get like, you know, an announcement ping on there and then I'll have to go check it. But yeah, as far as I know, it's a pretty active community. And I know that there are streamers that like kind of specialize in playing that game, like Asai, I think is one of them.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Again, not something I'm too familiar with, but it definitely sounds cool. I don't have a PC. I just have a laptop, so it would probably kill my laptop. But
Actually, you could probably get it on your laptop and it probably wouldn't take much resources to get it running.
well, maybe I know what I'll do when when I'm done recording this. I'll look into that more. But I remember so Guitar Hero, the timeline, like 2005 or so, the first one comes out, and then Guitar Hero 2 and Guitar Hero 3, which is like the first video game to sell $1 billion in sales, was a huge game. Like, was one of like the undisputed like goats of the franchise. It's very widely praised. And then you have World Tour, and then Guitar Hero 5, and then there's all these different spin-offs, artist specific versions, and then we have like Guitar Hero 6, and the franchise kind of starts to slip. I remember you, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I remember there was like a revival in like 2015. There was like a new version. And I think you played this, and I was kind of out of the Guitar Hero loop at this point, but I believe I remember playing it at your house. What was the sort of revival with Guitar Hero like? What do you remember about that?
So I actually thought the revival was really cool
Okay.
because they kind of redesigned the Guitar Hero controller,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really unique. Instead of the 5 colored buttons, it had like 3 and 3
Mm,
on the neck. So like 3 black ones and 3 white ones.
right.
So you could like so for making chords, like you could do like white, black, white, and you'd make like a chord formation, or like black, white, white, and then that would be a chord. So it was a new way to play, and it made it like stand out from the old games and give it like a reason to play that one over the old games.
Right.
Um, and that game, Guitar Hero Live, had like 2 modes. There was the live mode, which it would be like concert footage. Like it looked like maybe just like stock footage of like, a fake concert going on. And you would play in like the POV perspective of like a guitarist on stage. So like you would play as the notes are coming, but then like your point of view was like you'd like walk up to the crowd and like they'd all be cheering, and then you'd walk up to your bandmates and they're all like cheering you on.
Sure.
That mode was alright. That had, like, a very small number of songs that you
Mm-hmm.
could play in
Mm-hmm.
that mode, which is why I wasn't really all that fond of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the other mode, I think it was called Guitar Hero TV, and that was, like, an online thing where it was, like, they were always updating what songs were in there. So I
Okay.
think they would, like, switch out certain songs for others, and it would be, like, rotating. And, with that mode, instead of there being, like, live concert footage, there would be music videos playing over top of it. So like you would be getting the song, but also like the music video would be playing in the background. And I actually think that was like the first time I like discovered Blink 182, because I remember their song First Date was
Mhm.
on that, and the music video was behind it. So I like watched that. I thought the music video was funny. And I remember like I'd always like known about Blink 182 because my cousin, when I was younger, she like tried to indoctrinate me as a Blink 182 fan. Like she was obsessed
Right.
and just going on and on about him. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't care. But then I heard that song and I was like, oh, this is what they sound like. They actually sound pretty good.
Yeah.
So that got me into them.
Huh?
So yeah, Guitar Hero TV actually helped in like broadening my horizons a bit, like made me discover bands that I hadn't heard up at that point.
Sure. Yeah, that's an example of the Guitar Hero influence on your music taste. Maybe it was just a little more down the road. Yeah. Um, let's see. Did you ever play any of like Guitar Hero 5 or like Guitar Hero World Tour, or do you remember ever playing like any of those games, or was there a time where you clearly remember I'm done with Guitar Hero, or was it always just kind of you kept getting the latest and greatest version of the game?
I didn't like keep up with them as they were releasing. But I know that I've dabbled in Guitar Hero 5 and World Tour.
Okay.
I know my grandparents used to have World Tour,
Hmm.
so I played some of that. I distinctly remember playing some Linkin Park songs on that one. Um, but that one like didn't really have like any kind of special sauce to it.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of felt I think with that one, it felt a little, like, bland to me, at least in, like, personality compared to, like, Guitar Hero 3. And same with Guitar Hero 5. I remember playing, like, a couple songs. I actually remember, like, one time when we were still in, like, middle school, I came over to your house, and
Yeah.
I think Guitar Hero 5 was the one that we, like, played a little bit together.
Very possible. I had that one for the Wii. Talking about Guitar Hero World Tour and Guitar Hero 5, when they start to add in your different elements, they added like a microphone and a drum set. Did you ever dabble in any of that? Or were you strictly just you stuck with the guitar, old reliable? That was all you needed.
All I needed was the guitar. I have, like, played the drum kit before, I have, like, sang in the microphone before, but, like, those modes never really, like, stuck with me. I was just like, "This is Guitar Hero. Let's just keep it that way."
Guitar Hero, yeah. And then as you mentioned, they have different like DJ Hero and stuff. I don't even know like do you have like a turntable for that? I'm not really sure how that even.
Yeah, and there were, like, buttons on the turntable, and I guess you would, like, click those in, and then you'd have to, like, move it like a disc jockey. It was interesting.
Well, they made 2 of them, so they must have, had some success at least, but
That was a time where I think, like, them as a franchise, they're like, "We need to spice things up a little bit. We can't just be making, like, Guitar Hero 12."
yeah, they were losing direction, and then when, the game starts to sort of talking about that, just lose kind of some direction, just kind of start to spice things up, but they're kind of struggling, and eventually, now they're kind of a relic of the past. Do you remember that sort of as you kinda said, Guitar Hero World Tour, Guitar Hero 5, they didn't really have, like, anything no secret sauce, as you said, like, nothing that really drew you in. So I'm guessing at the time, when Guitar Hero started to go downhill, you could kind of notice maybe some decline from the player's perspective.
Yeah, I could kind of, like, notice it, I think, subconsciously. Like, I remember not really having, like, thoughts of, like, "Dang, this franchise is, like, taking a dive."
Right.
But, just, like, losing interest, there was a time when I, like, started losing interest. But I played World Tour and 5 before I got into, like, Green Day Rock Band.
Okay.
And I think getting into Green Day Rock Band was what kind of revived my interest in the franchise because Green Day Rock Band was actually the game where I finally learned how to use the guitar controller. That was like my first time using it because I got it for the Wii.
Mm,
And on the Wii, there was no alternative. Like you couldn't use like the Wiimote and nunchuck to like press buttons.
right.
So the Wii, I was forced to get a guitar controller, and then I finally just like, started trying to learn that. And I remember it kind of started to come to me pretty quickly from that point. One, I was a little bit older, so my hands are bigger, but also like I had been playing real guitar at that point. So I think, at least in terms of how to hold a guitar and like where to put my hands and all that, like it felt more comfortable to me by then.
Right. That's interesting that it took I didn't realize the timeline, like, you had the controller and you were with it, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I mean, hey, I respect it. In terms of difficulty, I'm sure I'm not a very good player on Guitar Hero. I was playing the other day and I didn't even go past like medium even nowadays. And that just something about that orange button. Once you go to hard, throwing that orange button in just kind of messes me up. If I can just keep my 4 fingers on that, red, green or green, red, yellow, blue. If we throw in that orange, I'm screwed. For you,
Yeah.
do you I mean, I don't I don't wanna put too much, emphasis on you, but I feel like you could go up to, like, expert on some songs. Am I right in that?
Yeah. Expert is what I normally play on.
Oh,
And especially, like, on Clone Hero, a lot of the songs that I, like, import oh, yeah, one thing to note about Clone Hero is that, like, most people only make, like, expert difficulty on songs. Like, they won't go through and make, like, easy, medium, hard, and expert. So you kinda have to, like, get used to that difficulty. Now so you'll need to be comfortable with the orange button, but depending on, like, the intricacy of the guitar part of the song, like, some expert songs can be pretty easy. Like, a lot of the punk stuff I play, like, our chords and a lot of strumming, so it's like you're not moving up the neck a whole lot. You just kind of, do your chords and then you strum them and then like it's not too difficult. But yeah, expert on like the OG games was a lot harder because they like chose songs that were more involved.
yeah.
But even then, like for example, Guitar Hero 3, like expert difficulty would get more and more difficult down the set list you go. Like you're starting with Soul or Slow Ride
Right.
on Guitar Hero 3, and that song is like a snoozer on expert. But then you work your way down to, of course, Through the Fire and Flames, and then you're like, this involves tech that I don't even know at this point.
Yeah.
Like I can't play Through the Fire and Flames on expert and survive it.
Okay, that was my next question because we talked about that earlier. That's kind of a big song in like the Guitar Hero community, and it's kind of got all sorts of memes around it. And I was going to ask if you've ever taken a stab at that one. It sounds like that is even too challenging for you. I've never even attempted it. I've seen people play through it online, and it's just like this crazy stuff. I've seen people do like. Have you ever seen these videos? This might come through Clone Hero. They'll do like, for example, like that like background noise at like a McDonald's, and they'll like code that into like Guitar Hero, and it'll be like the beeping will be like different colored buttons, and they'll have to strum along with that. Is that
Yeah,
Clone Hero or is that something else?
that's definitely Clone Hero. Yeah, you can make a chart based on like anything,
Okay.
which is funny. Like I have a lot of like video game music that I play along to as well.
Yeah.
And then I have some just like stupid meme stuff. Like I know one that I have was this YouTube video that was called All Star, but played on a calculator, and they charted that.
Nice.
So like they'll chart anything.
Yeah.
I actually got into like learning how to chart my own songs for Clone Hero, and I made I think 10 songs, and I mainly did some bands that like were just not showcased at all on the website. One was a band called Limp. They were like a very like, more obscure punk band from the late 90s. They only released like 3 albums and then they split up. But I did 3 of those songs. I did 3 songs of a band called All, and then like a handful of others.
Okay.
And that uses this software called Moonscraper.
Okay.
So you like use this app and then you basically just like import your song, and then you have to like manually place every single note all the way down like through the song, and then you just do that until it's done.
Dang.
The hardest part about using that though is that you have to tempo out the song as well. Like you can set your BPM as to like what the song is, but like, a lot of the stuff that I was trying to chart like didn't have a rock solid BPM.
Right.
So I would have to like go every few beats and then like reset the beginning of the BPM just to like even out everything and make sure it like lines up with the buttons. And so it can be kind of difficult to learn, but
Right.
once I started getting some songs done, I was like, dang, this is really cool to just
Yeah.
like really play songs I want to play that no one else has made.
That is really neat. It sounds like it takes a lot of patience to tab out or however you refer to it, like your own whatever you want to do. At first, I thought you meant like you had original music that you put on there, but it was
And, uh,
a version of the tablature or whatever version, whatever the phraseology is that you put on there. So that's I don't know if I would probably just rage quit at a certain point. It wouldn't sound right, but I imagine too you get to a point where in a song once you get like 2 or 3 blocks, it kind of just repeats those and you kind of just copy and pasting maybe. But
Yeah, that was the thing. Like for stuff that's like verse, chorus, if it's like mostly the same thing you're playing, you can't highlight whole chunks of what you've charted and then just paste it.
yes.
And for the most part, it would just kind of carry over with no issues. So that did mitigate the process a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, that would be that sounds like a job at that point. Like it's not even the game, it's just like a chore. Like you're basically like, I don't know, like a developer for this new game almost. And it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, that was why I only ever did 10.
Yeah, even that sounds like a lot. Like 10 songs, that's like an album dang near. I mean, I'm sure it was a cool experience. And I definitely, people who have the time or and the know-how, they can go through that and enjoy it. So, yeah, interesting. Guitar Hero, you still kind of play it with this modded kind of Clone Hero version. That seems to be like the only way that Guitar Hero is still around unless people are still playing the old games, which I know some people are. Do you still play any of the older games, Guitar Hero 3 or anything like that, or are you pretty much Clone Hero all the way?
Pretty much just Clone Hero. I pretty much sold off all of my like old game stuff. Like I don't really have means to play the older games on like my TV anymore. I could get them again, but with Clone Hero, I am just kind of like, this is my one-stop shop. This is really all I need. Now, the one thing you do miss out is like the charm of those older games. Like I do like the old like animation of like
Yeah.
the people on stage and in the crowd and all that. Like It was its whole experience, and now you're really just getting the song. You can put, like, a background behind it, like, you can put a music video behind it, and some charters do that anyway, so you'll, like, get the music video, but for the most part, you'll just download the chart, and then it's just, like, a black screen behind it, so you just have the chart.
Yeah.
So that's, give and take with that, but in terms of just, like, the sheer amount of songs that you can play, like, I think I have, like, 1,700 songs in my game. Um, and there really isn't a limit. Like, you can just put
Yeah.
however many songs you want in there.
Wow. We were going through some of the set lists of the different games earlier, and I was like, wow, this one had 73 songs. That's a lot. And then we got on, and like the sixth Guitar Hero had like 90 some odd songs. And now that I was like, dang, that's a lot of songs. And now you're here like, oh, I've got like over 1,000 songs. Like that blows everything out of the water. So it really lets you stretch the limits of any of the previous games. You could put all the previous games together, and this could still do more than those. That's
Oh, yeah.
definitely a big plus. Very cool. So, just to get your sort of firm answers on these, your favorite game in the Guitar Hero franchise, Guitar Hero 3. And then what was that one called? It was Guitar Hero 3, and there was like, what was it? Was it Legends of Rock or Rock Legends? What was it called?
Legends of Rock.
Legends of Rock.
And, there was another Guitar Hero game, like, years later. I think it was one of the, like, more recent ones before the reboot,
Mhm.
but I think it was called Warriors of Rock.
Yeah, I think that's the sixth one because we talked about that earlier and we looked at that one a little closer. And that was the sixth one after. So that was the one that followed Guitar Hero 5.
Okay. Yeah, I remember actually really liking that one. I would actually say in terms of, like, the mainline series, it's probably my 2nd favorite.
Okay.
I played a lot of that one.
Nice. Jackson said the same thing earlier. He was a fan of that one. I think he said World Tour was his favorite, if I remember correctly. I'm not really that partial to any of it. I liked World Tour. That's what I had. So you know, looking back at those songs, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Or like looking at art from like the loading screens, it's like, oh, yeah, it like just kind of takes you back to the nostalgia. And then talking about just like songs, like so you mentioned Cliffs of Dover, you enjoyed playing that one. And you know, it sounds like you like the challenge of some of the harder songs and kind of working your way through it. Are there any other examples or any other songs that you want to shout out or highlight as ones that you enjoyed playing?
There was another one, and actually last night, me and my brother were out, at a restaurant, and they started playing Lagrange by ZZ Top. That was one from Guitar Hero 3, and, like, as soon as it came on, those first couple chords, we just, like, looked at each other and, like, we just knew
Nice.
Guitar Hero 3. Like, it's become such an iconic, like, selection of songs, and it's like, now you'll just hear those songs out in the wild and just immediately think of that game.
Yeah.
And I saw this meme once. It was from, like, some comment section, I forget where, but, they were just like, "Anyone just, like, search up the Guitar Hero 3 OST to, like, listen to its songs?" And someone replied, and they were like, "Those are just real songs. It's not an OST. You're just listening to music."
Right. They took the songs from Guitar Hero and they made them into real music. These bands are all real.
I know. Can you believe that these bands that just, like, made songs for Guitar Hero, like, released them as real songs?
The band that recorded this ZZ Top, this band that did the soundtrack for, Guitar Hero 3, they're actually pretty good. They went off and actually recorded music.
Yeah, they're up and coming.
The band from rock band Green Day, they're actually legit. Like, I think they should
Yeah,
form a real band, not just do
I know.
games.
They made them into real people, like, they found people who looked like those game characters.
That is funny. Definitely, you know, legendary franchise. It had its run. It's kind of whatever it is at this point, but we a lot of people who played it, they look back fondly on it, and some people still hold on to their Wii or hold on to whatever so they can still play those older games, or they get into Clone Hero and they play the newer versions. Yeah, so I guess any kind of or final thoughts or comments on the Guitar Hero sort of franchise from your perspective as we sit.
I mean, there's about a lot of, like, little things that I could, like, continue to comment on. Another one I kinda dabbled in was, the Beatles Rock Band.
Yeah, yeah.
I played that one a little bit after, the Green Day one,
Okay.
and that was actually, like, my first time ever listening to the Beatles. It's like I was listening to all of those songs for the first time,
Nice.
and, I thought they were pretty good,
Yeah.
and I think I've shouted out, like, pretty much all of the Guitar Hero games that I have played.
Right.
Then they did, like, the Lego Rock Band games, which I thought those were kind of like that was also towards the end where it was kinda like, okay, really trying to find some new ideas to spruce this up.
Yeah, they're out of gas for sure. I remember looking at that when I was taking some notes and just doing some basic research on the different franchises and the different game versions. Definitely, I feel like Lego, there was like Lego Star Wars, Lego Batman, Lego Indiana Jones. I think they were just trying to put their stamp on everything. So, I mean, why not try it, I guess?
Yeah, and I think, like, the franchise was probably never gonna be, like, super, like, what's the word? Sustainable,
Right.
because it's like, they could only release so many songs per game, and it's like, there's an infinite pool of music to pull from, so it's like, I mean, technically, they could have continued making them forever,
Sure.
but I think, like, when you just keep, like, releasing them all as separate games and people have to buy these games at full price for, like, the new one, like, it becomes the new, like, Madden or,
Yep.
these NBA games that come out once a year.
Yep.
So it's like with Clone Hero, you just get all your music in one game, and that's a game you don't even have to buy.
Right.
But yeah, it's like having to fork out that money every single year to just get more songs instead of like having one game that just gets more songs added to it.
Right.
I feel like that's like the better model.
Yeah, and then too, like, the cost of the equipment, like, you have to have, like, a whole different controller to play the game, and then that's just more cost, and then, things happen, things come, things go, but, we'll always have the memory of Guitar Hero, one of the more legendary games of all time, incredibly influential soundtrack. People from, everybody who played it, cross generations even. I know, like, you mentioned, like, your grandparents had it at their house. Like, my family would play it. Like, it was a game people could kind of come around to, and it's not like one person's just gonna play. And if once they introduce the microphone and the drum set, you could kind of play together with different people. And it's kind of at a time like Jackson touched on this earlier, like party games were a thing, like Just Dance, Wii Sports. Like this was another kind of like people could gather around the TV and they're all sort of having fun. Even if one person's playing, like you got enjoyment out of like watching them play or whatever. It's a good atmosphere. It's fun. So
Yeah, I think Rock Band was like the best innovation they made
hmm
of the series. When Guitar Hero was starting to kind of like die down, I think Rock Band was what really rejuvenated it because, yeah, it added all those other players like the microphone, the drum kit. So it's like more people could play at once and like do unique things instead of everyone just like sitting there with guitars.
right.
So yeah, with it becoming more of a party game, I think that kind of rejuvenated it a bit. But even then, it could only go on for so long, I feel like.
Right. Did you ever play any of like the story mode, or were you just kind of always like free playing it? I never played much of the story mode. I'm not sure if you did or have any thoughts on that.
Um, as far as like the older ones, like Guitar Hero 3, I think as far as like story goes, it was really just like you had to play through the campaign in order to unlock like all the songs.
Right.
So I would do that um to like progress and get all of the songs unlocked. But then it was just like, I'd jump around to all the different songs whenever I wanted. I think Warriors of Rock had like a more involved like storyline to it. Cause I know there was like, once you get through the campaign, there was like this whole section where you would like play through all of Rush's 2112 album.
Yeah, we were looking.
And I remember like, that was a pretty cool sequence. And that was the first time I'd heard that album too,
Right.
but it had like unique like visuals to go with it, and it kind of had some like visual storytelling going on in the background. Like I thought that was a really interesting like collaboration they did with that album. But yeah, other than that, story mode, like I never played it for anything other than to just like unlock all the songs really.
Right. Yeah, definitely not something I dabbled in a ton. And I think like by the time I started playing like in the Guitar Hero World Tour, I think they had like all the songs unlocked, so you didn't really have to work through that. And I think it was still like an option, and you could like start your band and like tour the world, and then like build up your points or whatever. And the harder the shows got, the bigger the shows got, the harder the songs got, and like the
I
fun.
thought that progression was cool. I do remember that like as part of Guitar Hero 3, like you would start off playing in some like local bar, and
Yeah.
then by the end you're playing in like sold out stadiums or whatever.
Right. And that's the whole kind of point of the game, to give people at home or whatever that experience of being a rock star, being in a rock band. And, even if they did it, maybe it's not hyper realistic, but it's still a good time, and it still has made a lasting impact and has a, community that is still dedicated to it. So yeah, Guitar Hero, one of the great games, I think, of all time. One of the better, it's got a legacy. It's got people who still hold on to it, and it was unique. We hadn't really seen anything like that before. So
Yeah, definitely.
definitely. So I think that's going to about do it for this portion of Owen's Rock and Metal podcast, episode number 45. So, 45 episodes in the book. Matt's debut is in the book. We'll have to have you on again to talk about something you want to talk about. We'll find something. We can talk about Green Day. We can talk about Dropkick Murphys. We could try talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'll listen to an album and we can discuss. But yeah, unless you have anything else to add, I think we'll sign it off here.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much got my Guitar Hero geeking out of my system.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. I know this was a little longer episode than usual with two parts, two separate interviews. So that is going to do it for this edition of Owen's Rock and Metal Podcast. 45 episodes in the book. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Keep your eyes peeled for future episodes. Got different things planned down the road. And as always, never stop rocking.